So today we're going to do application of silk onto plexiglass plates for silk aquatint. So the first thing you want to do is get yourself set up. You want newsprint. You want your silk plate or your plexi plates cut to the right size. Silk cut larger, about an inch bigger all the way around. And then I'm going to mix up some of the solution, which is matte medium and about 50% black acrylic paint. And the reason for that is so that when you paint on the plates with the white acrylic, you'll be able to see what you're doing because you're going to be painting on a black surface. So you just mix that up. Doesn't have to be perfect measurements, just like that. And you also want to have a spray bottle at your disposal. I like to have a phone book or an old catalog ready to go, and you'll see why in a second. And here we go. So you grab your plate. First thing I do too is I like to sand it a little tiny bit with this really coarse sanding block. And all this does is it helps the silk stick to the surface of the plexi once I start squeegeeing it. Otherwise it might slide off. So this doesn't have to be a lot, just a little. Take a paper towel that, believe it or not, is fairly clean, and some water, and just wipe off the plastic dust, just a little bit. Then you're going to start painting onto the surface of the plexi a nice, flat, soft brush, as big as you can find. And you want to just make this kind of even, fairly thick with the black acrylic. This is what's going to bond the silk to the plate. Okay, and you can see my newsprint is also quite larger than the plate. Here's my silk. So now the silk is, as I said, pre-cut. I'm going to lay this down. You can move it as many times as you need to. And I want it to be kind of sticking over the edges as evenly as possible. And this is like the biggest fail ever. All right, here we go. Oh, yeah, that's good. Okay, so now it's pretty much evenly all the way around. It's a little bit less here, but that's okay. Take your hands with gloves on and kind of rub out from the center. First of all, you can feel if there's any little things. Like right there, there is one. There's actually a few on this. So I can usually get rid of them this way, sometimes not. No. My gloves are probably getting too dirty. There, not what I felt. You can't get rid of, there it is. Come on, get out of there. What is going on? He does not want to leave. There we go. Okay, so just kind of push out from the center like that. And then you're going to coat it again on the front surface with a lot of paint. And at this point, you also want to start the idea of kind of gluing the silk to the newsprint that's underneath. And the reason you do that is that as it's drying, you can see over there, as it's drying, it shrinks and it sticks to the newsprint and it kind of keeps it taut. So I'm sort of pushing it off the edge with my brush. And you also, this is why you have the spray bottle. In Colorado, it gets very dry, so we don't want this to dry out until we're ready. Don't be stingy with the paint. You're going to end up scraping most of it off, but you really need a lot to make sure it adheres properly. Okay. And there's a little thing on the top there. Okay, that's good. Now you take your little squeegee, which is just an ink card, and gently at first, you start pulling off this excess paint, but very gently. I'm not pressing hardly at all. If you press too hard at this point, that's when it's going to slide right off the plate. Okay, and now it looks pretty good actually. There's almost always little bumps and little wrinkles. I don't know if I want to try to get that. Let's see. Yeah, and that's the problem. Usually you can't see those things when they're that small. So you keep squeegeeing the paint off onto this old phone book, like that. So now I'm going to go the other direction, and you want to kind of go in every way. Some people go like this, and you can do that too, especially if you know that your image is going to have all kinds of motion around it, but I typically just do horizontal and vertical. And you just want to make sure you get it all the way squeegeed off, because if you leave any excess paint in it, it's going to effectively fill in the weave of the silk, which is what you want. You need the weave to hold the ink later. It's almost done. Okay, I think that's good. So I'm going to put it off to the side over here to dry. Okay, so this is the final part of the application of the silk with the black acrylic to the plate. So this is what it looks like when it's all dry and everything. And the first thing you do is just kind of slice open the back of it so you can get to your plate. Now this is different than the plates that you guys have. This is a board plate. This one over here has the plastic on the back, which is what you have. You can do either one. So you just want to peel this off as much as you can, like that, just so you can expose the edges, like that. And with a cutting mat, now we use just straight edge razors, but you can certainly use a mat knife. I don't suggest an X-Acto for this because X-Acto blades can waver a little bit too much. Very carefully, you want to get right on the edge of it and then slice on your cutting mat like this. And you can peel it away and you can kind of rip it. And like this. I'm sort of slightly angling the blade in a tiny bit also to kind of make sure that there's no, oops, don't do that, no silk that's sticking out over the edge, okay? Like that. So that's basically what you do, and you end up with this nice, beautiful, straight edge like that. So I'm not going to finish this. I'm going to move on to this in the essence of time. So I've already started this plate with a little bit of acrylic. What you're going to be using is white acrylic paint, and this one is not opened yet, sorry. So about 50-50 again. The white functions exactly like the black. You don't really need it. It's just so you can see what you're doing. What really is doing it is this, which is the gloss medium. Now I love this golden gloss medium. It's very, very liquidy and fluid. That's what you're looking for, not necessarily the whiteness of it. So it's about 50-50, and you can just mix it with a brush like that, okay? So this is your base mixture, and you can always just use this, very heavy, like so. Or you can also thin it on a little palette like this. Oh, and I don't have a spray bottle, so I guess I'll just go like that. So you can thin it with water. You can thin it up to like 75% water, in which case you're going to get something like that, and it's going to have more of an edge. These marks that I've already made on here were just done with a brush, dipped in water and dipped in that. So there's all different kinds of ways you can do it. And what's really cool is when you start layering, doing it in stages and letting it dry, and then you can start layering things over once they're dry. And you'll actually see when you print it, if you do it right, you can actually see the two different layers on top of each other. So the goal here is not necessarily the whiteness of it, but the smoothness. What you really want to do is make it smooth. That's why you want the gloss medium to be fluid and liquidy, because what that does is when I put the ink on it, and I wipe it, these areas will be nice and white. You can also do texture. This brush got left with acrylic medium on it, which is not good, don't do that, but it makes a really nice texture now. So you can do other things like this, which I do a lot in my own work. So anything like this, where you start getting these things that are really more of a textural and collagraph, those are going to print. You're gonna see that texture because I'm gonna be rubbing it once it's dry. So ideally, it's really more about the smoothness and the whiteness and building up the paint like that, okay? And there you go. Have fun.